So we are in the book of Daniel now. The context of this, historically speaking, is that the Israelites are God's chosen people. That's not saying that other people weren't able to be saved or anything of that nature, but God chose a specific group of people called the Israelites to be the lineage by which His future Son, the Savior of the world, will be born. The Israelites have journeyed with Jesus, with God, throughout all of the Old Testament. You might have heard of Moses and Pharaoh's army and them being enslaved in Egypt. God rescued them from that. And ever since then, there's like this pattern that the Israelites have of rebelling against God. Then things go really bad, and so they go, God, sorry. And He's like, okay, fine, you're back. And then they rebel against Him, and they apologize, and it's fine, you're back. It's over and over again. And then eventually God gets to 3. If you guys have parents that ever counted 3 when you were a kid? You have 3 counting parents? My parents did too. Right? Get over here. 1, 2, 3. And if you didn't get there on 3, I got spanked. How many of you guys had time out when you were a kid? How many of you got spanked like I did when you were a kid? That's right! Learn self-respect! So I grew up in the great state of Oklahoma where this happened all the time. But you go to the grocery store and other parents would be like, stop it. You put those crunchy munchies back on the shelf. Now. 1, 2. I'm serious. It's like, woman, you're not serious. Like, you're going to count to 3 again, aren't you? She's like, seriously. 1. And I'm like, you're not going to do anything. My parents were like rappers when it came to counting to 3. They were like, 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, Mom, I didn't hear what you said yet. It's the thing we find God in this chapter. He's been what we call long-suffering. For a long time he's put up with this. And then he finally gets to 3. What 3 looks like in the Old Testament is God goes, fine. If you want to worship pagan gods over and over again and keep rebelling against me, then I'm going to allow this great empire called Babylon to actually take you captive. So the Israelites then find themselves as exiles. An exile is someone who's not from a land, but they are placed there and forced to go there. Okay? So, let's say if you gave away America's secrets and we didn't want to kill you, we would exile you. So maybe put you in Panama or something like that, and you're never allowed back in the country you're from. This is where the Israelites find themselves. Israel is their hometown, the land of Canaan, Jerusalem. Now, Babylon comes in, takes over everything, brings the Israelites back, and now the Israelites are in Babylon. To give you an understanding of what Babylon was, think of Las Vegas minus any morality, okay? Which is ironic in and of itself. But we kind of see Las Vegas as like this hedonistic, meaning like do whatever you want, whenever you want culture, right? Sin City, as it were. Babylon basically put up against Las Vegas makes Las Vegas look like Tinky Winky and Elmo, right? It's like they rip. You guys ever? What's that show? Teletubbies. They make Babylon makes Las Vegas look like Nickelodeon, right? It's just this child, it's Blue's Clues, basically, right? That's how tame Las Vegas would be in comparison. Babylon, you're murdering whoever you want to murder. Children are being sacrificed to pagan gods. You can sleep with whomever you want, whenever you want. You can force them to have sex with you. It doesn't matter what age they are, no matter how old they are, how young they are. Nothing makes any difference. It's a do whatever you want culture. Now the Israelites find themselves in the middle of this, still trying to follow Yahweh. Yahweh, who obviously His laws are much more about eternal happiness, true joy, contentment, identity. Well, pagan law, as it were, seems very exactly what my flesh wants at any moment. Right? I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. So you can notice that what happened is when the Babylonians took the Israelites captive, the best of the best, they did not kill them. They tried to trade them into being Babylonians. They wanted them to worship Babylonian gods. They wanted them to bow to the Babylonian king. And Daniel was among those who was smart enough, physically lacked defection enough that they actually kept him. And they were going to train him in the king's palace to become a king's servant, to become a Babylonian. So this is where we pick up in the book of Daniel. They've been exiled. They're now in Babylon. The king has separated them. And these 4 guys, Daniel, and then his 3 buddies, we'll know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, are now in Babylon. And the king is trying to kind of groom them to become Babylonian. Daniel, chapter 1. I explained most of that in those first couple sections. We'll start at verse 5. The king assigned them. He was talking about the people that he was teaching them their language. We'll go back to verse 3 actually. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of the court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. The king, or the chief royal officer, was to teach them the language and the literature of Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. Among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, he called him Shadrach. Mishael was Meshach, and Azariah is Abednego. We, for all intents and purposes, are just going to call them Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay? But Daniel resolved, underline that word resolved. Ahead of time, Daniel made a plan to be in Babylon, but not of Babylon. Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now, God had caused the officials to show favor and compassion to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, he basically says, you want me to ask the king, who we just got his food and wine from, like this delicate meat from, if you could not eat it? Like, I just went and got it for you. Now you want me to go back to the king and say, turns out Daniel doesn't want your food or your wine. That's what you want me to do? He's going to kill me. But he doesn't. And here's what Daniel says to him. He says, don't worry. Because one of the king's concerns was, well, if you don't eat my food and drink my wine, you're going to become skinny and you're going to have physical defect, you're going to get sick, you're going to be gangly. Like, that's not a Babylonian. We're big, we're robust, we're strong people. So Daniel said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to eat nothing but vegetables and drink nothing but water for 10 days. Okay? At the end of 10 days, if I look mangy or gangly or malnourished at all, then I'll buy in and I'll eat your food and drink your wine. But at the end of 10 days of drinking just water, eating only vegetables, if I look fine, then please give in to my request, and all I want to eat is vegetables and all I want to drink is wine. So after 10 days, the king brings them back out, and Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego look just as well as anybody else does. Here's what it says in the text. Daniel then said, please take your servants. So he agreed to this and says for 10 days. Verse 15. At the end of the 10 days, they looked altogether healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables and said, to the 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them into his service, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, so they entered the king's service. In every matter of wisdom and understanding, about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all of his magicians and enchanters in the whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. So, when you read through that text, you go, oh, that's kind of a neat story to introduce a book. But I think there's a principle to learn even inside of the introduction to this book about these exiles in Babylon. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego trying to face this pagan nation while trying to serve the holy, true king. So what I want to pull out today is, what are some of the ways that the world that we live in does its best to try to pull us away from the God that we know? You see, as Christians, we're supposed to serve Yahweh. We're supposed to delight in Him and His grace and His forgiveness. But so often what we get caught in the middle of is there's kind of like these sirens. Okay, if you've ever read the Odyssey. Sirens are like these things that call out to us, that beckon us, that say, just give that up, man. Who cares? It's just one night. It's just one. It's not that big of a deal. Well, what we learn from it is the very same way that Babylon tried to brainwash Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the same. It's the exact same tactic that the world is using today. So we want to look at that, understand how to counteract it. We've got 15 minutes to do so. So let's dive in. Number 1 is this. If you're taking notes, I really recommend that you do. iPhone, iPad, in your notebooks, in your Bibles, whatever it might be, so that you can go back and listen if you want to later. In about a 30-minute message, you'll probably only retain about 3% of the information. And it'll still be spotty at that. So, the more you can write down and regurgitate the information, the better prepared you're actually going to be to have this make an impact. Okay? If you're just coming every week, and you're not writing things down or memorizing them, then what's going to happen is you're going to remember all the big stories that I tell, but not any of the principles that go along with them. So if I ask you what the sermon's about, you shouldn't go, we talked about the Olive Garden. Okay? There should be something different. Okay? So, number one, the first way that the world tries to have us be in the world and also of the world. Okay? This is the distinction that the book of Romans makes, that we are citizens of heaven. We are born of the King. We are God's sons and daughters. But we live on this planet where Satan is kind of the prince of this world. We're kind of behind enemy lines. We're the marginalized. We're the destitute. We are kind of like the Israelites in Babylon. So the world is constantly trying to beckon us to, hey, don't just be in the world, man. Be of it as well. Don't just exist inside of it. Let it exist inside of you. The first way is this. The world tries to identify us in relation to itself. The world wants to identify us in relation to itself. What does that mean? Okay. Well, what did they do with Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? What's the first thing that the king and his royal officials try to do to them? Give them new names. From now on, you're not going to be known by these names. Hananiah, right? Blessing of God. Or Azariah, whatever of God, right? I don't know what it means. Daniel means like gift of God? No, that's math. It means gift of God. Anyway, the L at the end of Daniel is short for Elohim. So Daniel or Hananiah. The end of that name literally means Yahweh. Or Azariah, Yahweh. So they had very God-fearing names. And the first thing they did was change them to very pagan names. Like Belteshazzar literally means one who serves Baal. Right? So they're trying to convince them that, look, you can be known by something else. This is called their identity. One of the first things that this world tries to do to get us to forget why we were made and who we were made of and whose we are is to first tell us, look, stop identifying with your old way of doing things. Start to identify with these new things. Let me give you a new name, new worth, new value. The way this played out in my life is I went to a junior high graduating class of 4 people. 4! Okay? In Bakersfield, California. 4 people. It was insane. Small Lutheran school. So I went to a high school. It was a compound high school. Had about 4,000 kids at it. I didn't know a single one of them. So I start at Liberty High School, and it's my first day. And I was really into, previously in my life, was really into a couple of things that the world wouldn't consider cool. Okay? Like I was really into SpongeBob SquarePants. Okay? Don't clap for that. I mean, like, really into it. Like, day 1 of school, I, without exaggeration, wore SpongeBob SquarePants wristbands to high school. Okay? And I played Junior Olympic soccer. So I played for Team USA in the Junior Olympics. And so I would like go over to Europe, and I would play against Team Italy. And I would go and play against Team France or whatever. We'd play against all the international teams. And I thought that was cool because I got to travel a lot, and we beat the German national team. Like, I thought that was rad. Okay, now I played the goalie, so it's the least sexy position of all soccer, but it is what it is. Neither here nor there. So I wore my Junior Olympic like shirt and my game shorts with SpongeBob SquarePants wristbands to a 4,000 person high school in Bakersfield, California. I got made fun of so incredibly bad that I watched my whole persona change in a matter of days. Like, the things that I thought were really cool became really uncool to me all of a sudden. And I would like get dressed for school, and my mom would be like, "What are you wearing?" And I'm like, "Well," and it wasn't who I was. I was kind of a nerd. I liked SpongeBob. I would still go home and watch SpongeBob. I just couldn't let anyone else know it. But I didn't want them to slowly and methodically, surgically remove my old identity from me. So I became kind of like this moldable piece of mankind saying, okay, then show me where my value is. Because the whole SpongeBob thing didn't work. Junior Olympics, no one gives a rip about. So I kind of became like Plato, not the philosopher, like Play-Doh. And I walked into school kind of like, mold me, you know? Tell me who I am then. Like, don't we all do this? You're not conscientious of it. But if you find yourself as part of a sect or part of a group of people, this is exactly what you've done. You've identified with a group of people who think in such a way because at one point, when you were in your most vulnerable, this is the group that accepted you. Or maybe you've got a dad who was really into football, right? So the way that you found to identify with him was through football. Now you're a football player, okay? Or maybe you got to school and everyone thought you were a reject. Well, you found another group of people who were also called rejects, and you guys all started to skate together, and you became the skater group, or whatever it might be. There's a lot of different ways that people enter different groups, okay? If you find your worth in playing like fantastical games like Dungeons and Dragons, it's because at one point that genuinely interested you, and that group accepted you. That's your new group, okay? We all do this. So I ate my lunch in the bathroom stall for the first couple weeks of school. No lie whatsoever. In high school, I ate in a bathroom stall. Then, these two guys named Billy Knuckles and Jordan Fuentes realized that I ate lunch in a bathroom stall, and they told everyone else that I ate lunch in a bathroom stall, okay? And they made fun of me like no one's business. I'm kidding you not. Okay, maybe you had a bully, maybe you didn't in school. My bully's name was Billy Knuckles. Okay? And I'm not making that up. I literally had to show people. I did this the weekend a couple years ago at our winter camp, and I had to bring my yearbook the next day because no one believed me. That his name is literally Billy Knuckles. He would watch me open my lockbook combination every day. He would stand this close to it so he could memorize it. And if I said anything, he's like, "I'll kill you." And I'm like, "Okay, well, they're not saying anything." So he would. My mom worked with fossil watches, so we got new fossil watches all the time. Every day he would go into my backpack and take whatever he wanted. He took my money every day, he took my watch every day, he took everything that I had every single day. Sometimes he would take the whole backpack, and I'd be like, great. Sometimes he would take my clothes, and so I'd finish PE, and I'd walk around with PE clothes the rest of the day. I had to tell my mom that I lost my backpack again, because I didn't want her to know that Billy was picking on me. Okay? This was my life. Okay? I'm not going to crack in my brain. This is how I learned to... Now, after about 2 weeks, I was finishing 4th period drama class, and the group of people that I was with were like, okay, I'll meet you in the drama room. And I went, wait, what? I was like, I'm not cool, but they're not cool either. And they're going to eat in the drama room. So I became a theater kid. Why? Because I went and ate lunch there that day, and Mr. Ware, God bless his heart, would let anyone who wanted to come into the drama room and eat in the theater room. So I became that. I then went on to be in like 13 plays in high school. I competed in a national Shakespearean festival, for God's sakes. Why? Because when I was vulnerable, they brought me in. That was my clique. That was my group. This group of drama kids who are extremely welcoming and extremely sexually frustrated. Okay? It's just, if you've ever been in drama or been around theater kids, that's just what they do. There's a lot of tension behind the scenes that's built up. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you've never been in drama. Because anyone who's ever been in a theater production will tell you that's the way that it is. Okay? Anyone here in theater, you don't want to argue that it's not sexually tension filled? Okay, good. It is. Anyway, so that became my identity. That's where I fit in. Now, after a while, things would change, and then I became more and more popular, and then I started becoming like the most popular, and then I started picking on people. But not nerds. I picked on cool people. I thought that was even better. I was like, oh well. It was like my little like anarchy vengeance moment, where I was the coolest kid at school, and then like the star of the basketball team, I'd be like, what are you doing with your life? I don't want to use too many big words, because I know you can't understand it. And he's like this big old like 6'5" white guy just towering over me, but I just make fun of him. That wasn't cool either. But then I found my identity in the fact that people related to me because I could take down the giants in our school. You see what I'm talking about? Everything that gives us value and worth, we cling to it. So what we have to do is we have to stop this notion or this nonsense that you are somehow this Pangeic, you're alone on an island, you don't have any other commitments, you're your own boss. Because you learned your own boss talk from someone else who was also not their own boss. You understand what I'm saying? You're like, oh, I'm unique just like everybody else. It's like you're not really that unique. Some group taught you at one point in your lowest that this is your new identity. This is what the world tries to do with us. That is why we as Christians, it's so pivotal in these moments that we are inviting, welcoming, loving, receiving, friendly, generous, kind, because you don't know what day someone's identity has just been smashed or they're looking for something new. And if they walk into our doors and they don't feel the love of Christ here, there are other groups very willing to accept them. And not all of them are honoring to God. So we have to be the front lines we should be like professional Play-Doh people. Going, look, this is who you actually are. and give them identity in Jesus. This is what the world tries to do us, though. New name, new identity. The second thing we see in the story, is the world tries to feed us then these slow and daily morsels of lies to try to get us, to separate us from our old way of doing things. It's just this daily struggle. These daily, it's kind of like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's a very steady diet of who you actually aren't supposed to be. Okay? What Daniel understood is a principle I want to teach you guys, and that you guys need to start practicing. It's called personal legalism. Okay? It sounds really awfully boring, but it's not. It's actually a really great spiritual discipline. Okay? When I say the word discipline, don't think of getting spanked because you're being bad. Think of the person who goes and works out, or the person who's got discipline in how they read, or something else like that. It's a spiritual discipline. So in the same way, you work out consistently to make sure your body's in shape. Your spirit's actually the same way. It's never in the middle. It's not stagnant. Okay? You're either developing spiritually or you are degenerating spiritually. You're either spiritually evolving or you're spiritually devolving. You're either moving closer towards Christ or becoming more of this world. Okay? It's like pushing a boulder up a hill. You can't take a break. The boulder doesn't just sit there like, I guess physics don't apply to me. It either goes down or you're pushing it up. Now, the majority of the world has chosen to let the boulder fall because it's easier work to let a boulder fall or to push it up a hill. It's much easier to let it fall. So as Christians, we are called to, against the inertia and the flow of our culture, to keep pushing back and going, I know that's easier, I know that's simpler, I know that's a quicker way to get attention, but I have resolved to something bigger. Personal legalism are the personal decisions that we must make after we practice the Shakespearean notion of know thyself and do thyself be true. We have to have certain things in our life that maybe other people can do, but you can't. Here's what I mean by that. I have a very addictive personality. Okay? I don't really do things halfway. Okay? You might have noticed that with the culture of what I do. Okay? Like, people have, I have a kid. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to have 3. Okay? I just don't know how to, and we're not done. Like, we're not even done having a kid. So, pray for me. But, you know, there's been some trends in the last 5 or so years that people have gotten really into, and they're like, you should do it too, and I cannot do it. Okay? Like, Clash of Clans is really big. They're like, you should get a Clash of Clans account. I'm like, I can't do it. Okay? I have to literally limit myself to being in like 2 fantasy football leagues, because a few years ago I was in 6 of them. That's a lot of fantasy football leagues. Okay? I don't know how to halfway do something. I don't understand it. So, there are certain things in my life. Is it a sin to have a video game system in your house? Yes or no? No! Anyone ever played a video game and God was like, not Destiny's not okay? No, it's not. But guess what? If I have a video game system set up at my house, it goes against my personal legalism. Christopher Ray Hilkin cannot have a video game system in his house because I know myself enough to know I can't be around that and still exhibit health and faithfulness to what I'm supposed to be doing in my life. I can't do it. Now, I don't think it's big and brave for someone to go, well, then I'm going to set up 2 video game systems and watch me reject them every single day. And I only slip into it about twice a week. Which is better obedience? To not have it as a temptation, therefore not doing it, or to overindulge, waste your time, practice slothfulness, which is what I do when I do it. So you got to get, I'm not a healthy video game player. Like when there's a level to level up, I don't stop until I get level whatever the biggest level is. Okay? So if it's that big of a problem for me, I just don't have it. The better obedience is to know yourself enough to know that you can't do it. Okay? If you're a female and you're anywhere near my age, or maybe you're even in high school, you'll notice that I'm not super welcoming to females. Okay? And if you've been like, he's cold to me. It's very intentional. Growing up, I have a really hard time with the line between flirting and being kind to people. It's got me in so much trouble growing up. Like when I got engaged to Paige, I got a litter of emails from people going, how dare you? And I went, wait, what? You thought we were getting married? What the heck is going on here? Like crazy stuff was going on. Why? Because that line's been blurred for me. So some of you in here might be like, Oh yeah, like there's a few friends in my really close friends group, a few friends of the opposite gender in my really close friends group. Maybe you can do that. More power to you. I can't. Okay? So my personal legalism is, I stay on this side of things because I have trouble with the line on this side of things. Not with crossing boundaries with females or anything else like that, but of being maybe too complimentary or too kind to a point where it becomes flirty. Does that make sense? So I have that personal legalism. Some of you might be able to have a smartphone at your home, in your room, at night, internet access, and pornography is just not a thing for you. It doesn't bother you. Well, for the 85% of people over the age of 12 that struggle with consistent pornography viewing, a lot of us go, I can't have access to that. Which doesn't mean that if you have a smartphone in your room at night with internet access and it's something you don't struggle with, that you're wrong. That's why it's called personal legalism. Well, what we try to do in this day and age with like yeah, look at me, I'm strong and independent, is we try to walk into these scenarios again and again, and then we fail again and again, and we think that's good obedience. But it's not. When I date someone, I can't be in a house with them alone. Why? Because I've tried it and I fail. Maybe you've got a relationship in which you really don't struggle with that. But if you do, then you should get out of the relationship because they don't find you attractive. Because anyone else goes, yeah. Does anyone like, oh, this is my daughter, you want to be alone in the bed together? Sure, why not? Is there anything intrinsically sinful about being in a bed with someone of the opposite gender at night? Is that a sin? Which one of the commandments does it break? Any of them? Is there any wisdom there? Is it inviting yourself into something more? Yes. So personal legalism for you should be, I'm not going to be alone with someone of the opposite gender. Not because that necessarily is a sin, but because knowing yourself enough, that's not where you go. This is what Daniel does. Daniel says, I'm not going to drink the wine, I'm not going to eat the meat. Why? Because drinking is a sin? Is drinking a sin? No. But when someone is well-fed with luxurious, delicate meats, and they're all liquored up and a little bit tipsy, how easy is it to resolve to not partake in things that your body wants to do? It's much more difficult, am I right? Which is why almost every story that we roll our eyes at in college started with, well, I was drunk or I was drinking. After that, then, I mean, as a bystander, you're excited because you're like, oh, this is going to be a good one. Why? Because your decision making goes kaput when you drink. So Daniel goes, I'm in Babylon. I'm a chief official in the royal court. That means that I've got access to a harem of women, of whom I can take any of them, no matter how old they are or how young they are, and have my way with them whenever I wanted to. Now, when we're in a right state of mind, we go, oh, that's reviling. That's not okay. But now imagine having these girls throw themselves at you, and you're well-fed, and you're a little bit drunk, and all the things of the world are coming at you going, come on, it's just one time. How much more difficult is it to be resolved towards something better? It's very difficult. So knowing himself, Daniel says, me, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, we're drinking wine and eating vegetables. We're drinking water. You're all right. I was testing you. This is why this is so important. The question to you is, what are those personal legalisms you need to set up in your life? In 11:12, the word we use for them is guardrails. What is a guardrail? A guardrail creates a small accident now, so you prevent a big accident later. If you're driving on the side of a cliff and you run into the guardrail, is it going to hurt your car? Yes. But would you rather hit that guardrail or go off the side of the cliff? Guardrail. So it creates a minor accident going, hey, but it actually prevents a much bigger one. Some of you go, well, whenever I'm with this group of friends, the way that I talk about females, the way that I swear, or the way that I carry myself, it's not okay. So your legalism can't be, all right, well, I'll try better tomorrow. Well, then I'll try better the next day. It's got to be, I need to get a new group of friends. Some of you broke up with someone because it was really unhealthy, and then this week, you're in a new relationship. There's an issue there. And it's not because the other person was the wrong one for you. it's because you're not ready to date people yet. It's a you thing, not a them thing. So maybe your personal legalism is, I need to take a 6-month break from the opposite gender. Can someone else be dating someone and be completely okay? Yes, it's your personal legalism. But if you don't have that conscience or a mentor speaking into your life to give you sometimes personal legalism, you might turn a blind eye to it, pretending like it's not there. But if you're going to be honest with yourself, when I'm talking right now, you know the different guardrails you need to set up in your life, and you need to start practicing them today. Third, after, this is exactly what happened to Daniel. Give him a new name, feed him the things, and then it was to educate them in the ways of the world. So that's the third way. Then the world tries to educate us in its ways. How to try to educate us? It tells us what our worth is in terms of worldly standards. It says what our affections ought to be in terms of worldly standards. It says what our value, what our time is worth in terms of worldly standards. So here's what I want you to get rid of this notion right now. When I put my kids to bed every night, I say prayers with them. You could probably argue that that Peyton doesn't quite understand what praying is quite yet. He's a little bit afraid of Jesus because Jesus is supposed to be everywhere inside of him, and that means in his closet too. And he doesn't love that so much, right? But we pray to Jesus anyway, and we read storybooks about Jesus, and every storybook that has a picture of Jesus, he's a different color, and for some reason in most books he's white and blonde, and I'm like, yeah, this is terrible. Like, there's no shot he's white, there's no shot he's blonde, but some Aryan wrote this book about whatever it is. The Bible, okay? So I'm reading to him, and Jesus looks, he's got a white robe in this book, but he looks very Middle Eastern in this book, as he should, even black sometimes. That's much a better picture of being white Aryan Jesus. But there's all these different views of it, and so he doesn't quite understand it. Harper doesn't get anything, but she loves saying amen at the end of the prayer. But lately, I gotta admit something. My kids, when we finish praying, they say dilly dilly. So we'll be like, amen, and they'll go, dilly dilly. All right. Close enough. Peyton also mashes up Jesus Loves Me with the alphabet song. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. I'm like, Papa, this is exactly what the world wants. You start with, but then you move into secular things like the alphabet. So I don't really get it. But I pray them every night. I pray with Brady every night. I pray for Brady every night. I pray for his future spouse. I pray for all these things for Brady. But Brady doesn't get what's going on. He doesn't even know that his hands are his own yet. He punches them in the face all the time. Okay? But these are my kids. Now, from the outside, I love when people are like, dude, you Christians brainwash your kids. And you're like, well, you're darn right we do. Every day. Because here's what you need to understand. You have 168 hours in a week. You spend about 166 of those being brainwashed by the world. And then we spend about 2 hours a week in church, some kind of church activity, trying to be brainwashed to the antithesis. Okay, your brain's neuroplastic. It's moldable. It's malleable. It's mutable. Everything changes. Your synapses and your neurons are firing and morphing every day. Okay? A brain of someone who is high functioning in one area has a physiological difference than someone in another area. Your brain literally changes shape depending on what you focus on. So you're darn right, we have to be brainwashed towards Jesus. And it's not because you can't stand there and be like, well, no one brainwashes me. No, you're wrong. Everyone brainwashes you. You have to be strategic in your life, though, on what is going to get the most of your time being brainwashed. Because if you walk around and you go, look, we're just here by random chance. You came up with that all on your own. You've never heard anyone say that before. You just thought of that. Well, no. I heard one guy say, you're being brainwashed by him. Yeah, but you're being brainwashed by Jesus. You're right. Completely. So we as Christians have to stop denying the fact that we're being brainwashed. Everyone is being brainwashed. The question is simply this. Are you being brainwashed towards something that promises eternal life or promises temporary gains with no hope of futures? Because this is what this world wants to do. It wants to put your value in terms of your beauty or your looks or your talents or your success, your work ethic. Okay? Anyone know what commercial ends with this simple phrase? Because you're worth it. Anyone know? No. But that'd be great. What is it? It's a makeup commercial. Right? It's like Maybelline, right? Because you're worth it. Or it's L'Oreal, some crap commercial. But here's what the commercial's saying. It's almost the closest thing to truth in advertising I've ever seen like that. Okay? Look, here's what you can buy, and if you purchase this and put it on your skin, then I'm going to conclude the commercial with, this is your worth. You're worth it. See how cute you could be? You're worth it to be that cute. This is completely against. This is brainwashing at its finest. Okay? You deserve it. It's all about you. It's okay to lie about your age as long as you can pull it off. Right? Every commercial that we see is trying to brainwash us. I'm not saying take some kind of crazy hiatus from all social media or whatever like that. If you need to, if it's personal legalism, then do it. What I'm saying is if you're not strategic about being brainwashed in truth, you're going to give in to everything that this world's trying to brainwash you with. If you've got a completely naturalistic point of view, you've been brainwashed to think that. If you're completely secular, you've been brainwashed to think that. If you're a Hindu, you've been brainwashed to think that. If you're a Christian, you've been brainwashed to think that. Our Skeptics Forum was to basically say, let's take all these worldviews and which one has the most validity, then spend your life being brainwashed in it. Find the truth, and then get completely indoctrinated in that truth. First of all, take a step back and go, what is truth? Once we prove that Jesus is the only way, that God exists, now spend your life digging into that, because that's the only truth. So we have to be conscientious about that. Why do we promote growth groups so much in here? Why? It's called brainwashing. You need to spend 2 more hours every week around like-minded Christian people with a mentor that are going to brainwash you towards Jesus. When we worship, we're being brainwashed. When I teach right now, you're currently being brainwashed. This is the beauty of church. But we have so kind of alienated and antagonized the idea of brainwashing that we've come to this notion that some are and some aren't. But you're wrong. Something sits on the throne of your life. The question is it Yahweh, or is it something that Yahweh's created? Is it eternal life-giving, or is it false life-giving? This is a simple question we need to answer. This is what Daniel shows us. This is how the story begins with this simple question of, y'all are living in the middle of Babylon. What are you doing about it? You're living in the middle of indoctrination towards a culture you're not supposed to be a part of. What are you doing about it? You've been called to be a cultural missionary at your school. Don't be some weirdo who stands in the corner all the time. Engage people. But do it in such a way that you're not drinking of what they're drinking. You're not eating what they're eating. And I don't literally mean drinking and eating. What I do mean is you've got to have certain things in your life that you go, that's one area that I know if I dip my toe in that pool, I'm going to fall in head first. This is how we can be in Babylon without being of Babylon. And every week, when you enter these doors, the doors that growth group you meet in, understand what practice is taking place. You're not trying to so much become like Christ because you were made like Christ. You're trying to unbecome like the world. When you go to your growth group, you're kind of ungrowing what the world has grown on you more so than you're growing towards Christ. Because God made you. He breathed into you life. He is the Father. You have His DNA. Our process of spiritual formation as Christians is to unbecome what the world is throwing at us every week. That's why we do church. To become like Jesus? Yes. How do we do that? By unbecoming like the world. As we go through this book of Daniel, may we see this through a new perspective. That we're not just reading about someone who was exiled in a country of not their own, that this is exactly where we are. What can we learn from that? And how can we engage this culture and pull them towards Christ, who is the only God worth serving? The only brainwash worth being used. Let's pray. God, for your grace and your mercy, we thank you. And in the middle of this trial and these storms of our life, in the middle of Babylon, we want to cry out to you behind enemy lines and say, God, you show me how I can be a light for you in this place. As Matthew 5:16 says, may they see our good deeds and then praise you. May we be strategic about where we find our identity, that it's not the first group that accepted us, but instead it's the group that's going to push us closer to you. May we consistently be unbecoming like the world. In your name we pray. Amen.